Hello and welcome to Foos Entertainment. This is going to be kind of shorter than I originally wanted it to be, but there will be some really good ones when it comes to this Master of Horror event, which will end with one, and I say one because we will run out of time pretty quickly. I might put two Tim Burton movies to finish this off at the end, if I have the time. Because the idea is to have all these videos uploaded onto this channel by no later than Halloween night. So that's how that goes. Now it's going to be very steep because it is the 29th right now. But we'll be getting a few good ones in. I'm going to probably do 3 at a time when it comes to this. Possibly 4 that I can get through them as quickly as possible. We're going to try to keep it as close to the essentials as possible. Now, why did I choose this particular one to start off with? Is because it's called Master of Horror, the Masters of Horror event. So it makes a lot of sense that we would actually have 2 Masters of Horror in this first one. It kind of goes with the theme. Now, I will admit, this is definitely not my favorite version of it. I actually prefer the 2004 version from TNT with Rob Lowe over this one. But this does have a cult following, and it is very popular. Now, what's interesting is, unlike 2004's, this is actually a movie. If you actually watch the end credits to this, it will actually show you that this actually was shown at the movie theaters. And that is 1979's Salems Lot, which I always thought was a miniseries. But there are rules on any credits to the miniseries. So you can say televised by, or Dolby Stereo or Dolby Surround were available, or some shit like that. This one actually said, I believe, presented in something, I forget which. Once I've seen this, and I did watch all these before I reviewed the Conjuring universe. That's how far behind I am. But a lot of stuff happened in October. It just had to be a bad month. But there's indicators and the end credits of this that this was actually a movie. I mean, one of the longest movies out there in this time, but a movie. All right. Well, Salem's Lot. People say this is the last gothic horror vampire movie. Technically, it isn't. The last, I say, gothic horror movie that's really a good gothic vampire horror movie. The last really good gothic one. Depending on your reference, the last great vampire gothic old school movie. There's a few of them. There's Fright Night from 1985. There's Children of the Night from 1992. And, of course, there's Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. And I would say those are quite gothic vampire movies. And to a point, despite this Western type of thing that it does in it, I would say that John Carpenter's Vampires is a gothic vampire movie, to a point. But if you want to go to the old, like, Nosferatu, 1940s, or 1930s Bela Lugosi, Dracula type of atmospheric vampire movie, yes, this is probably the last one. But there are throwbacks to that era in other movies. So I would disagree with people say about that. But I would say this is probably the best retelling of the silent film character of the Nosferatu in a modern sense. With, of course, we did with Barlow in Salem's Lot. And I'll show you kind of what I mean when it comes down to that. You can kind of see it right here. Or really better, you see it right here. You have the bald head, the elongated fingers, skinny ass bony body, the long ass fangs. The creature calling how he kind of does this all the time. You have all that elements in this particular movie, yes. And that makes it probably the closest thing there is to the, you know, what was it, 1921, some shit like that, Nosferatu movie. So, yeah, I would say, in that sense, it is. Well, the plot of the movie is actually, the plot of this movie, although people make it more complicated, and since we're 6 minutes in, I'm not going to take too much time going for point-by-point bulletins. I'm getting really tired of doing that, so I'm probably going to try to keep plots more straightforward and direct and quick on execution to get through it a lot quicker. You'll still get an idea what the movie's about. Don't worry about that. This won't be taking it through every little thing in the movie. Which I think is more professional, if you ask. Not before. But the plot of the movie is basically this. A writer who was suffering from PTSD trauma from events that he sustained by going into a haunted house known as the Marston House in his hometown of Jerusalem's Lot, returns to write a book on haunted houses. An attempt to go for some therapeutic exercise to exercise his trauma from him so he can move on with his life. So he goes back to Jerusalem's Lot, which of course is known as Salems Lot. It doesn't really show you why in this. It does in 2004 miniseries. Letters on the town sort of, landmark faded away, leaving really only Salems instead of Jerusalem's. Doesn't tell you that in this, but that's why. And when he's over there, he discovers that two mysterious individuals, William Stryker and Kurt Barlow, bought the haunted house, the Marston House, which is a house of horror that has a history of death and mayhem, of people dying over there and stuff like that. Takes a liking to the people in the town, and of course has reunions with people that know him in the town. He discovers that in a lot of ways the town is cursed by evil itself, incarnate. And it attracts evil people. And also attracted him, which makes him question if he's evil. And slowly the town starts to act weird. Mysterious deaths start to happen. 2 children die. The 2 children's mother dies. A caretaker dies. What I mean by caretaker is graveyard caretaker. And so basically things kind of go chaotic. And then we find out that basically there's an epidemic, a plague of some kind, that's steering its way through the town. And we discovered that it's vampirism. And we have met William Stryker, who basically is trying to open up an antique shop with his partner Kurt Barlow. But we don't actually get to ever see Kurt Barlow. And when we finally do see Kurt Barlow, we find out that he is pretty much the Nosferatu. Incarnate, basically, he's that vampire. And that he has been plaguing the town, turning the inhabitants into the undead. And of course he has to make a last stand with a now orphaned child. And they obviously purge the town of the evil, purifying it, and so on. This film does have some interesting tragedies in it. Like, for example, you have the fact that our main character, Ben Mears, who is this novelist, obviously, writer, he takes a liking and falls in love with one of the town's middle-aged women. And the last thing we see in this movie is he actually has to stake her because she's a vampire and he has to put her out of her misery. And that was kind of sad in a lot of ways. I kind of felt sorry for him. It's the same execution as kind of in the 2004 version, but like I said, what the 2004 version to me does that this one doesn't is this one seems a little too convenient and too traditional. When it comes down to 2004 version is much more creepy and gothic in a sense of being just unsettling compared to this one. This one's really just purely a gothic horror type of movie. Now, why did I choose this one to start off with? Because this one's based on a novel by Stephen King, but is directed by the late Tobe Hooper. He was a netter master of horror, responsible for the creation of Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. So that makes a lot of sense that you would use him. Well, I did watch this theatrically, and that was very interesting to watch this film theatrically. This is probably the only movie that's actually a movie that I watched that is actually in 133 by 1 full frame pen and scan format, which I think is very different for a movie. But this one's recorded in that format. As for the picture, I say that Warner Brothers could have done a lot better on this picture. This picture does seem very dated looking. And this is a Blu-ray disc, people. But the picture looks very, very dated. Sort of washed out in some prospects of it. It's kind of washed out slightly. But it is the best it's ever looked. I can certainly say that. So it's watchable. As for the audio, very disappointed. Very, very disappointed in Warner Brothers. They give you a very bad mono track in this movie. Very bad mono track in this movie. They basically give you a DTS HD Master Audio 1.0 source track. It's very, very, very sad that Salems has a very crappy mono track. Granted, it's not the worst mono track I've heard from Warner Brothers for an old movie, but it is sad that we only get as a mono track. This particular movie could have benefited from a surround source. But we'll never see a surround source for this movie. I don't think it's ever going to happen. It's too outdated. I don't think that they could actually give you that ability. But it's satisfying. You can still hear everything quite well. Because it is a one-channel mono track,